I'd like to begin this introduction of my good friend and a great business leader by talking about trust. As we all know, trust is essential in our American society, all societies. It's the backbone of the institutions that anchor us. The Gallup organization has been polling American people for decades, and one of the most consistent and alarming trends that has been the decline in public trust. More specifically, over the last 40 years, the trend has been steadily downward. The government, the media, the church, the schools, big business, we've all experienced an erosion in public trust. That's a challenge for all of us, and meeting that challenge demands that we all take responsibility, personal responsibility, for rebuilding public confidence. Our speaker today, JPMorgan Chase Chairman, President, and CEO Jamie Dimon, talked about this issue in his annual letter to shareholders last April. He wrote, quote, "We need trust and confidence in our institutions because confidence is the secret sauce that, without spending any money, helps the economy to grow." He went on to emphasize the importance of, quote, "free enterprise with strong ethics and high standards," end quote. In the middle of 2016, Jamie also took to the pages of the New York Times to announce that he was raising wages for his employees. He did it because he was alarmed that 2/3 of Americans were convinced that their kids would not be better off than they were. That's a watershed change from a generation ago when it was assumed by many of us that our children would out-earn and outlive us. I mention this because Jamie has always stepped up and taken responsibility for representing the highest ideals in business. He understands that business and government need each other, just as management and workers need each other, just as companies and customers need each other. He's answered the call from presidents on both sides of the aisles and offered insight and cooperation. He played a central role in helping America weather the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. And these are just some of the reasons why he's not only America's most successful banker, but also he's one of America's most successful business leaders in any industry. He's also very good at identifying trends and understanding how those trends will affect his business and ours. His stock price has been fantastic, more than doubled over the last 5 years. Today, JPMorgan Chase is the largest bank in the United States and the 6th largest bank in the world. I should mention that the first 4 largest are in China. So it'll be interesting to hear what that means to America, to the world, and of course, to the banking industry. Jamie started his storied career, as many people know, at American Express. And after a series of high-profile positions in the financial services industry, he spent time with us here in Chicago as the CEO of Bank One until it was acquired by JPMorgan Chase. He's the grandson of Greek immigrants, a father of 3, and a devoted husband to his wife, Judy, who many of us also know and like a lot. We're proud to host him here at the Economic Club, so please give a very warm welcome to Jamie Dimon. What's it like when you come back to Chicago? Like, what do you think about?
First of all, welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. It's hard to believe, but we lived here for 7 years, and we love the town. And my wife would want to say she wished we were here to say hi to all of you. We probably like Chicago a little bit more than we like New York, in case you don't know that. But I still, it's great because I walked in the Chase building before, and people were waving at me, and I still know a lot of people. So
what do you like about Chicago?
My first day, not my first day, my first week as CEO of Bank One, you all had this thing called the Civic Committee. And it was, businesses and hospitals and universities and the mayor, and it all comes together. And they actually try to do serious work, like get things done. And so people thought I was going to cancel it because Bank One hosted it and we paid for the breakfast. I said, hell no, there's a great organization you should have here. And people used to always ask, what have you done for Chicago lately? And you can ask anyone in Chicago that question, they'll answer it. If you ask a New Yorker that question, they'll say, what do you mean? What has New York done for me? So it's just a great town. I used to love walking from my brownstone into Gibson's and Frog Bar and all that.
Well, we loved having you. So you made a big announcement about an investment that you're making in our city. Can you talk about it a little bit here?
Yeah. So you were mentioning some of the ills of society. So as a broader thing, I personally, I'm the chairman of the Business Roundtable now too, and I personally believe that business has been kind of absent from the debate. And I think we need to be involved, because you mentioned, I mean, things are not going to work without collaboration between business, civic society, government, and it's just become anger. And a lot of us in business, by the way, we can bypass the worst parts of society. We simply could ignore it and get by. On the other hand, it's really bad. And I was with Brenda yesterday with a couple of ex-convicts who you helped get a job for. But between the felons, the drug problem, the inner city schools don't graduate kids, we have a problem. Okay, and I think we have to hold two things in our mind. America is the best country on the planet, different than President Trump says, except it truly is, except if you travel around the world. But we've got serious problems, and we need to fix them. And we all have to take a little bit of responsibility. So things, and most companies here do. I know a lot of people are very philanthropic in this room, but it's a little more than philanthropy. We need jobs, we need education, we need infrastructure. So the efforts we do in Detroit and Chicago around what can JPMorgan do that can uniquely help Chicago and people in Chicago. And so we can do affordable housing. If you're in the medical business, you can do things we can't. That is not our expertise. We could do jobs and skills. We can do building of infrastructure. I love doing entrepreneurs. We have an entrepreneur fund of color for people of color now, and things like that just can help accelerate society. This morning I met with 60 10th graders, and Peter Shear runs global corporate responsibility for us. 60 10th graders, kids who are black, kind of in trouble. They get full-time mentors from JPMorgan. They get summer jobs, and these programs, we started small. They almost all get into college. And I went to a graduation in LA, and all the parents came. It wasn't quite this room, but the parents, and people are crying. And one of the kids said he's got offers from Harvard and Princeton. And who's going to give him the biggest scholarship is the only question. And so I think we need, yeah, exactly, Princeton. I think we need to be involved and get things done as part of your civic society, as part of what makes society good.
Do you think that, I mean, there's a lot in that answer, so I want to unpack it a little bit and then just hear specifically about Chicago. But first, I want to go to your last point. Do your shareholders care about this view about the role and responsibility of a corporation, or do they just care about profits? And why should they care? Yeah,
so I've never had this conflict. I tell the shareholders the same thing I tell my board, I tell employees, I tell, and the reason I take so much time to write that letter is to get some thoughts out and down. I have never had a conflict in my life between shareholder value, i.e. financial success, customer, employee, community. Okay, to me, they're all the same thing. They're links in that fence. If I do any one badly, I will fail. And so I look at the other way around. So if you show me a company that's not financially successful, I'll show you a failing company. So my first job is make it a healthy and vibrant company. I can only do that by doing a great job for customers. At the end of the day, the people who serve the customers are our employees. Okay, so they all need to be happy and healthy and vibrant, but every one of us has a role in society. And even if you were a small store, a corner bakery store, you participate in society. You help the church, the synagogue, the mosque. You hire kids in the summer. You help the homeless person or something like that. That is what society is. And being a big company that operates in 2,000 cities is no different than that. And we could do things in a bigger scale, so we could do it in a different way. But I've never had a problem. I've never actually had a shareholder tell me you're wasting shareholder money. Do
you think that's uniquely American, though, that perspective about the role and responsibility? Because if you go around the world, people don't necessarily feel the same way about business's role in society.
It depends what you're talking about, because if you go to certain types of countries, they're forced to. If you go to other countries, as part of, if you go to Saudi Aramco is forced to do things for the government. Not forced, they build things for them in schools and stuff like that. So it's actually all different around the world. But I would say on average, American business and American people are more philanthropical. It's much more of a subject here. People give away money here. I mean, you go to some countries, it just isn't part of what they do. They don't understand, and they're going to grow, and I think they're going to change, but they don't do as much of it.
Is this social responsibility also embedded in just banking because of the Community Reinvestment Act? So it's a part of your DNA very differently than an industrial company that's just a metal bending business?
I don't
Not
think
just,
so.
But is a...
I think it runs the gamut. So remember, a lot of people had company towns like Eastman Kodak and Corning and stuff like that, where they built the schools, and they built the roads, and so I think most of your companies do it. Some give away 0.5% of profits, some give away 1%, some do give away a lot of their people time, which we do in addition to that. So in addition, most of the folks probably don't know this room, we have responsibilities under the law. called Community Reinvestment Act. Some of those I think are quite good, and some of those I think are completely misguided and actually cause the opposite of what you want. And so to me, I don't mind having those laws. You should be really careful when you impose upon companies what they have to do because they're a bank, because a lot of people did some really stupid stuff. And it backfires. And so, so I'm not against it, but it's not the reason we do the other stuff.
So tell me.
We actually do them completely separately. I mean.
And tell me again about what you're doing in Chicago specifically. What's the program?
So this morning was the 60 kids. So it's getting these kids through.
But you're making a big $40 million investment?
The $40 million will be affordable housing. I was with Brenda yesterday, and she's getting jobs for convicted felons, and she works under the Chicago Transit Authorities here, but it's unbelievable. These folks, you get out of prison, you paid your price, you can't get a job. You can't, by law, take most of the jobs at JPMorgan, which I think is wrong. And not only that, your credit's not good. You can't move into a lot of homes because once you put down their felon, they're not going to let you move in, even though I kind of don't know what the law is about that. So we got to get the jobs and training. So a lot of it's jobs and training. Some is around that. Some will be just around other training programs. Entrepreneurship, small business lending. So the stuff we uniquely can do that we can accelerate.
And how do you decide what that is? Because I read one of the quotes where you talked about the responsibility of a company, and you were specifically talking about Detroit, and you said it's not about just throwing money at a problem. You said go with your expertise and data.
Right.
So how do you see your
Detroit,
expertise in terms of these things?
So one lesson we've learned, and we do this around the world, it's work skill stuff. We learn a lot from Switzerland and Germany and Japan, and we share that. But we've learned one lesson. If the local society, think of government, mayor, governor, and the civic not-for-profits, schools you work with, if they're not all aligned, don't waste your time and money. So what we're going to do is JPMorgan Chase, we'll do it where we think it's going to work, and we're not going to do it where it doesn't. And we may very well make that public, because I think some of these people are hurting their citizens. So in Detroit, obviously we're doing a lot of stuff here. In Detroit, they had a mayor, 80% black town, black community. A white guy did a write-in vote by going door to door, knocking on doors and going to people's living rooms. And when he got up and we saw him speaking, he said, and it wasn't Democrat or Republican crap, okay? Just drop all that. He said, I need jobs. I need business to move in. I need affordable housing. I need business structures. I need a light rail line between Wayne State University and downtown. I need entrepreneurs of color. I need small businesses. So he needed to make progress. I need the street lights on. Half the street lights weren't on. I need to knock down, they had 70,000 abandoned homes, which is like 10 times any other city in America. And remember, Detroit is 120 square miles and a lot of single family homes, and so you can do economic planning. And so Peter went up with the whole team of people. When we saw this guy, we were all in, just all in.
Just because of him?
That guy should be president of the United States, Mayor Duggan, okay? Because of him and because of the governor. And we went up and we said, what can we do to help? And he said, you know what? I don't know where these homes are that we have to knock down or refurbish. And someone came up with the idea, a local tech company built it, that on your iPhone, your iPad, any citizen can click, geolocate, done, they know all the homes they plan. We don't have mortgages for rehab homes, which is true. So we got a local bank to do it. We're taking first loss. We funded the development of the small rail line. We funded a lot of affordable housing. So there we put in the riskiest piece so that hundreds of millions of dollars can come on top of it. And then I had great fun. You should do this with me one day. Then we did the Entrepreneurs of Color Fund. So I met with 30 entrepreneurs, and I think they had smaller companies. Some were trucking, some were food. But the one I remember is one of them where they were fixing those streetlights. But you do business with government, or a city, you got to show certain wherewithal, and they didn't have the ability to lay out the money to buy the goods to fix the homes. They got the kind of loan and funding from us, and now they're growing. They're one of the main fixers of those light bulbs. And these were 30 bright-eyed, smart, go-get-em entrepreneurs of color in Detroit. And so, and that's also a lot of fun. Our people love it, and as a business matter, our reputation in Detroit is like this. I mean, we've become the Bank of Detroit, and we were before, but it's amazing that you can help. It's amazing you can help a town with stuff like that and how it does affect your reputation. We send kids from all around the world. They're elected by their bosses, so it's an honor to do this, to go advise not-for-profits. So they need help around management, finance, HR programs, and stuff like that. And these teams of 12 kids, and they come from Mumbai, New Orleans, Hong Kong, China, Vietnam, And everyone loves it. And Bond's our company. These kids now talk to each other around the world because they have these bonding experiences. And so it's been a great thing for the company, and we're getting much better how we use that money. We're not going to use it just to write a check to throw it away. Just not going to do it. And so I tell people, don't even bother to ask. It's going to work or we're not doing it. And so we've asked our people. So the people here, Melissa, I know Melissa Bean's in this room. Melissa worked with the team, the people in the room. Peter, our experts around the world, they came up with the plan. So it's not a top-down plan for me. So
were you looking for something, or this came to you and it was so compelling and you say, we're all in? Because clearly you're very enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, after Detroit, we said we're going to revamp how we do it, and we're going to do a better job in a community to have a more organized and focused effort over an extended period of time. And so Chicago's the third. We're thinking about like a New Orleans, and we're going to do DC. I think Ward 7, Ward 8, the places that really need help there. We do the South Bronx, so that we're picking areas that really need the help, and then putting JPMorgan's might behind it.
So try to parse for me your job satisfaction that comes from doing your job, making sure you have what you called a fortress balance sheet, making sure the bank runs, and going into these big American cities and affecting meaningful change. Is it easy to think about them separately? Do they go together? Does one become a conduit for you to do the other? How do you think about that? Sometimes you'll have people say, I do this so that I can do that.
I don't know. I mean, I basically love my job. I'm not one of those people, look, it's tiring and exhausting. I had to go down to Washington all the time. It was a real pain in the ass. But I basically love my job. I'm so damn proud of our people. I'm proud of what we do in these communities. We lift up the community. So in Chicago, small business, middle market, large corporations, philanthropy, of course, I'm just proud of it. I do a little of all of it. There are some people who get more joy out of one than the other. I have to do my job, so that means I have to do all of that well. But I always remind people, if I don't make JPMorgan Chase a healthy, vibrant company, all the rest doesn't matter. So if CEOs are out there, you invest in stocks, and it's all about do good, but their company sucks, I would tell them, refocus your efforts, buddy. Okay, like do not do that. And that inside that company, you want to have a great company, build a great company, great people, and then you can accomplish all these other things too.
You talked about small business. You talked about small minority businesses. How important are small businesses to the U.S. economy?
They're critical. One of the things, one of the things I complained about that's not working in this great country of ours is obviously we're not building infrastructure properly. It takes 12 years to get a permit to build a bridge. I was quoted somewhere saying, I'm embarrassed to be an American. I'm not embarrassed to be an American. I'm embarrassed about that. Okay, our inner city schools don't graduate kids. Small business formation has been about half of what it was in a normal recovery. Okay, I'm going to tell you.
So what are the implications of that?
It was terrible. So there are 28 million businesses in America. These numbers are roughly accurate. Okay, 20 million are one person. Okay, and 1,700 probably do half the R&D in the country, half the big investments. So think of the big 1,700 companies. But the ecosystem, it all feeds each other. So you see what happens when a big factory closes. So actually, when I was in Lawnsdale, Sears Roebuck closes, the rest of the community fell apart because it supported all the small business stuff like that. And people have to get that around the head. The ecosystem needs all of them. But you do the wrong thing. So I am absolutely convinced, I can't prove it, but I will with big data over time, that the reason the small business formation has been low is regulations. Okay, in New York City, I can remember one example. It takes 1 year and 3 licenses to become a barber. Now how many people have a year to wait? But I consider that corruption. I don't consider that like it's okay. It's corruption. Okay, that's government jobs, people being paid, taking their sweet ass time to go about it, and it's inability to access to capital. That inability to access to capital was direct lending to startups, not existing small businesses. And as you know, a lot of people started, how they funded their startup? Home equity loans and mortgage cash outs, both of which almost disappeared because of regulations were so punishing around failed mortgages that people stopped allowing some of those things. And I think we made a mistake. So small business formation is half of what it was in a normal recovery. And that's probably at this point, you're talking about now 1 million or 2 million additional small businesses. And our tax system has been driving companies overseas for 10 years now. E&Y estimates that 5,000 US headquartered companies are now owned by foreign companies. because of the tax system. 5,000.
So you're clearly in favor of the tax cut.
No, it's not a tax cut. And again, I beg you, if you're a Democrat or Republican, listen carefully to me. We need a competitive tax system in a competitive world.
But if
let me finish. The notion.
I told you what it's like.
The
right?
notion that we're going to have an uncompetitive tax system and do well for our country is crazy.
But this is semantics, Jamie. I mean, if the corporate tax rate is 35% and we're talking about 20 or 25, what else is that?
That's a cut. There's no question.
But
though
we're clear.
Though you're going to eliminate a lot of base, that's a cut. But you notice that, and we need it. Okay, and staring us in the face is the fact that $3 trillion and 5,000 companies are now overseas that probably would have been here. That money would have been in the system. The counterfactual isn't what some economists say, well, the company's going to raise their wages immediately. We might. The counterfactual would have been, had we had the right system 7 years ago, trillions of dollars have been retained. Some would have been paid out in dividends and stock buyback, but so be it. That's your money. You might buy a house, you might be charitable, you might do something, you might reinvest it, and companies would have made huge investments. And that drives, and we know one thing for sure, investment drives productivity, drives jobs and wages.
But is that really, okay, so.
But the business community is not fought for. You've not seen anyone in the business community, I'm the chair of the Business Roundtable, say, cut my taxes. No, I want the opposite. I think we should get rid of carried interest. I think we should get rid of deferrals for all the hedge funds. I think we should get rid of state and community tax deductions. And if you want to raise my rate, so be it. But whatever you do not have an uncompetitive tax system in a very competitive world. That is a mistake for America. And to confuse the two, I think is a huge error.
But when you look at the actual implied tax rate of most of the companies in America, what they're paying much less than
the people have got these numbers wrong. So the stated rate is 35. The effective U.S. rate is 25. Some economists on TV saying the effective rate is 15. That's true, because a lot of that's overseas money. That's the point.
Right.
They're leaving the money over there to reduce their tax rate.
Right, but then there are some.
No, but the rest of the world, since Clinton was president, has gone from 39 to 25, and their effective tax rate is now like 20. We've stayed up here on both effective and stated, and they've come down here. There also should be what they call anti-base erosion, but think of this, very simple. People are taking intellectual property, say it's worth $1 billion for whatever, for pharmaceuticals, they move that to Ireland, and they charge it back to the US, and they're basically just moving profits, and they're paying 12.5% there. They're going to get rid of some of that too. So these people writing the tax code, they're going after the things that are bad, that cause disincentives. I think American corporations should pay taxes, and I'm perfectly happy paying taxes myself. But in the state immunity tax, I know it's going to hurt Illinois a little bit. But you know who gets the benefit of the state immunity taxes? 80% goes to people making over $500,000 a year, and there are 5 states, all of them highly profligate, that get most of those benefits. That's Illinois, California, New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey. Why should Arkansas and Wisconsin be funding you? Which is basically what it is. And so, my view is, let's do the right thing. I don't think the private equity guy should argue for carried interest. I don't think the hedge fund guy should argue for deferral. I don't think I should argue for reducing my rate. I also would argue here, and the BRT supporting the earned income tax credit. I want to double it.
You've said that if rates went down, this was in your most recent letter, that you thought it would affect compensation in this country, and the problem that we've had with languishing wage growth would change. And you've obviously directly affected that. You gave 18,000 people a raise inside of JPMorgan, and your minimum wage for a starting bank teller is somewhere between 12 and 16 and a half.
Well, it's effectively going to be 15. There may be some areas with a little bit less, but it's effectively 15. Which is $32,000 a year, whatever like that. And it's $32,000 plus medical, which is worth 11. If your family is worth like 15. And that alone, people say, my God. And remember, that's a starter job.
But how does that work?
That's the first job.
How does that work if you can get that labor cheaper somewhere else?
I'm fine anyways. My view is, well, first of all, we don't really know. This is going to, I forgot we announced how much it's going to cost us. We will get better people of lower attrition. I'm not trying to do that analysis. I don't want to do it. I'll spend more money doing the analysis. What?
We're at full employment, basically.
Yeah, but we'll get better people, I'm saying. I think if you pay more, you tend to get better people. You have lower attrition. And so, and if it costs more money, so be it. We have a problem in society, folks. One is middle-class incomes, which have not gone up. That problem, and we need to do something about it, is going to be driven by job growth and education. So I think the Democrats have a job agenda, a growth agenda, a pro-free enterprise agenda. Free enterprise is a good thing, okay? Not bad, you know, and we have to have proper safety nets, but I personally think at the low end, we simply have to, the government's got to have a negative income tax. You are not going to solve the problem of low-skilled wage earners.
But that's not coming out in this tax reform. That's not happening.
You know, it might happen, though, because both Democrats and Republicans want it. I think we should do it. And if it cost the country another $100 billion a year, I would do it. So that young person, whether they have kids or not, you know, the minimum wage, instead of being $7 an hour, which is $14,000 a year, you know, would be $22.
So minimum wage should go up, federal minimum wage.
I would do it by negative income tax. I think forcing every McDonald's around the world to go up could close McDonald's. It'll have the opposite effect. Having a negative income tax, you're just paying people to work. And I think it'll be a positive for the GDP. And I think we're just helping people have a living wage. It'll be better. So, first of all, jobs create dignity. Dignity reduces crime. Dignity reduces drugs. You know, the household formation will go up. It'll be a huge positive for society. And it's time we do something like that, intelligently designed.
Do you think that'll happen?
I'm going to fight for it. I don't know, but Paul Ryan wants it. The Republicans want it. The Democrats want it. The business community supports it. So
but you just talked about Republican-Democrat crap.
But they both want it here. I'm saying this is one. Infrastructure and this one, the two ones where they both want it.
So you think because they both want it, we could get over the line?
I think it has a chance, yeah.
And is the Business Roundtable pushing this as well? We
are, yes. It's in our, if you read our document, it says we also support things that are good for society, like work skills things, expand the earned income tax credit. We didn't get into the specifics. I don't think the business, I mean, someone said, well, you should write up the code. How would it look if the Fortune 200 writes up the earned income tax credit code? I mean, come on. It's just, that should be done by the politicians, not by us. But we desperately support. I would support if they put a surcharge on my income to pay for it.
Let me shift gears to America and the world and just ask a couple questions because they do have economic implications. Some of the nationalist rhetoric that is going around the world, including in our own country, has some real long-term implications, particularly if you look at our potential changes in trade policy.
Right.
How do you feel about that? What do you say?
Well, first of all, I'd say there's good nationalism and bad nationalism. So good nationalism is you love your country and you want to help it and you want to lift it up and stuff like that. When it becomes me against you nationalism, that's bad. So, and you've seen a little bit of both and it all gets mixed in together and stuff like that.
But isn't there a lot of zero-sum game nationalism going on right now?
Yes, it's dangerous. Nothing's really happened. It's a lot of talk. You know, but you mentioned the one where it's most...
But it has affected, I read Forbes did a story about the American brand, and they said the American brand for the first time dropped globally from being #1 to #7.
Yeah, well, it happened after Vietnam too. So, you know, America is this hugely resilient country with the best businesses, food, water, and energy, best military, best and widest, deepest capital markets, the most innovation. You can't compare most countries to the innovation we have here. And our neighbors are great. I love Mexico. We should never be rude to a neighbor like Mexico. We have the Atlantic and the Pacific. And you got to put in perspective that what I just said. No one has that. Not Japan, not Brazil, not India, not China, not Russia, not Turkey, not Mexico. No one. And it's a huge gift. And therefore, we should be a leader in the world. Not the ugly American, but trying to set standards and things like that. And I do think some of this rhetoric is hurting us. Now, there'll be a new president or in 3.5 years or 7 years, and America can recover.
Well, which will it be, 3.5 or 7?
I honestly, my guess is no better than yours, but if I had to bet, I'd bet at 3.5. But you know, the Democrats have to come up with a reasonable candidate. You know, if they have a complete leftist candidate, Trump will win again. And who knows all these outcome of all these things that are taking place. But my point is, the resiliency of the country will still be here. That's not going to disappear because if you don't like your president. And so that recovery,
but you said some of these policies could be the
worst one, in my opinion, that can surprise us and hurt and cause more damage than you think is the trade one. Now, I personally think they're going to do a deal with Mexico. I was in Mexico last week. I speak to the administration. They're tough. I mean, they say tough things. And Peter was a trade negotiator, but it behooves us to do a deal with Mexico. They need our help. If we don't do a deal with Mexico, we're going to help the leftist guy Obrador win the election. That would be a huge mistake.
But wouldn't it also hurt a lot of U.S. businesses?
The U.S. businesses have to readjust. You know what? Honestly, I don't want to cry. They'll be fine, but they'll have to readjust, particularly the auto guys. Okay, they'll have to put plants elsewhere, and whether it actually helps America, I really don't think so. And I don't think NAFTA, I don't think Mexico and Canada are the enchilada. The big enchilada is China. And on that one, you know, and President Trump says things, sometimes he's partially right. Therefore. So, but I mean, you got to listen to everybody, and they do steal IP. They've been conducting cyber war. They have tariff barriers. WTO, as it regards China, is disadvantageous to the United States. They have non-tariff barriers, and trade is not reciprocal. So when you hear trade, we have these free trade deals, that does not mean equal.
If you were negotiating with China, what would you do?
So I would tell them that, you know, you're going to have to make some changes.
How would you do that? Would you be, I mean, just practically?
I would be very tough on them. But I'd want to do a deal. By the way, I know they like China. They know what I said is true. They know it's true. So, like, I can't buy a company in China. I mean, a bank or securities. Well, you have a bank, a securities company, and an asset management company. They can come here and buy. They go to London and buy. So, Trump, when he talks about, and his people, they talk about trade, they're talking about equal, reciprocal, which is not what the trading system is. And I think they're kind of true about that. We should move closer to equal and reciprocal. It doesn't have to be overnight. It doesn't have to be immediately. It doesn't have to cause huge disruption. I think China's, my view, is going to be willing to make a lot of changes. They need some of those changes for themselves. They need market reform. Therefore, they need a stronger JPMorgan there. They need more consumerism there. Therefore, they should allow some of these things.
And won't some of these things naturally happen? Because, for example, the IP situation. To the extent they develop their own IP, they are going to want to protect it.
It's also in their interest for that. Right. I've always said.
So isn't that?
Yes, they're moving that way, and I think they'll do it. They're not going to be do it because, you know, the American told them to. Now, when you treat foreign countries, you got to be a little careful because that one thing they can't do it because it'll look bad. So you have to be a little more respectful and private when you have some of these conversations. And so I think the Chinese are going to move. We're going to be tough. They're going to move some more. We're going to be tough. They're going to move some more. But if not, this is where you can have a problem in world trade. And that could actually affect the economy and have a longer term effect.
Staying outside of the US.
This is an important thing. So China, I remember I wrote about the Chinese banks becoming competitors 6 years ago. I told President Obama, he's making a big deal out of China. 4 of their banks are now bigger than us. Now they can't do what we can do, and they're not as good as we are. But they're coming.
But that's inevitable, isn't it? It's based upon the size of their economy, number of customers.
But they've tied my hands. The American government, and I won't go through all the reasons why, to compete with them, and the Chinese too. That's what I'm saying. Now it's time. Let me go. I want to compete fair and free in China against the Chinese banks, and also around the world. So, but their competition is coming. The huge markets are a huge competitive advantage.
Right.
And you know, like I said, they can't do all the things we do now, but they want to. They aspire to.
But they get smart about it.
Well, they can buy a bunch of these other companies with pocket change.
Right.
Just keep that in mind. So you say, well, they can't build an investment bank. They can buy an investment bank. They'll probably screw it up if they do, but because most buyers always have. But the fact is they can, and they should aspire to.
Is it dangerous to discount the competition?
Yes.
So
yes. I didn't mean, I'm saying they're coming. I'm not discounting. I'm simply saying they may not do a good job. I always tell people at JPMorgan Chase, always hear me, you're going to have tough competition. So I don't spend a lot of time talking about whether the competition is weak or not. I say it's coming. And it's coming in a direction you don't know. It could be fintech, it could be China, it could be the revival of a company that had a problem. You know, but it's coming, and you have to assume it, and therefore you have to assume you got to do a better job for your customer.
Staying outside of the U.S. again, Brexit. Does the EU survive Brexit? Not UK, EU.
That's what I was always worried about. That Brexit would either cause the EU to pull apart, or cause them to acknowledge their problems and pull closer together. So far, it looks like they're causing them to acknowledge their problems and pull closer together. Okay, and the reason this is so important is the breakup of the monetary union. There is no good breakup of the monetary union. So the only breakup of the monetary union is a great recession at a minimum in Europe. Okay, and in some of those countries they already have 20% unemployment.
Right.
So that's why this monetary union thing is so critical. There's no back door. There's no good way to do it. There's no negotiated exit. And if it even started, you know what happened with currency trading. Like the second people even started to worry about it, and so that's a big one. But so far they're pulling together, and I think if the better thing for them to do is to perfect the union, which means the common market, which they've never finished, like allowing companies to have the same regulations across all the European continent. It means having a financial system. I'm not talking about banks. I'm talking about the government, where they control a little bit more how people do deficits and funding and stuff like that, and regulators that regulate the whole system. So like banks, they should let them do pan-European. A pan-European bank will be more diversified, it'll be stronger, it'll reduce the cost to customers, but it also means you need a pan-European regulator.
But you're going to have some pushback on that one.
Well, they're actually talking about starting on that course again.
Do they have the leadership to pull this off? So, I mean, you've got Macron is new, Merkel's got new issues, Theresa May is not solidified in her base. I mean, is this possible even right now?
Merkel, you point out, Merkel, I think, is one of the most capable politicians on the planet in the last 15 years. And the fact that she's now in a very weakened spot is bad for all of us. I don't know if she could pull a rabbit out of the hat here. And Macron was a hugely pleasant surprise. Here's a 39-year-old, started his own party in France, was elected, got 50% of the votes for his new party in effectively their Congress. He's pro-business, pro-capital. He was an investment banker. He wants labor reform. They need labor reform. Okay, they have a crippling labor system there, and they've had, like, I think, unemployment among people like 20 to 35, something like that, 20%.
Impossible to fire someone.
Impossible to fire, and therefore you don't hire. Everyone is contractor, but how do you have 25% unemployment among that group for the second generation and the third generation? I mean, that's what revolutions are made of. So he's right to fix it. He's got a lot of resistance, but he's strong. You know, I've met with him a couple of times. He's strong. He's not going to be pushed around. He's got his party, and he's going to fight for it. So huge positive. Merkel is a negative. She's losing power. Hope she may not, but Macron a huge positive. Renzi was doing great in Italy, and they replaced him with, well, the person that replaced him was fine, but the party that might replace him is a little crazy.
So I want to run through a list and ask you what you learned from it. So what did you learn from the financial crisis?
Well, when I write about it, it's lessons learned or relearned. I always knew about capital liquidity. I always had it. We didn't need government help. We didn't need TARP. We didn't need any of that. I think the industry would have been far better had it been properly regulated, so I agree with that. I actually think Dodd-Frank did some of the stuff that fixed it. I think it did a lot of other stuff that was irrelevant, but it did some of the stuff that fixed it. I would never buy a Bear Stearns again. I would never shake a hand of a government again. I don't trust any one of them, ever. Okay.
We started off on trust. Just remember that.
Well,
okay.
The way they act, and you've seen it when politicians get their, can get their teeth in something that helps them, they just use it. Whether it's constitutional or not makes absolutely no difference to most people in Congress. Was
this disappointing to you? It feels like you harbor a lot there.
Yeah, I'm going to write about it one day. Name by name. Name by name, yeah.
Has a list.
And I don't know.
What did you learn from getting fired?
But the other thing is that you have Rahm Emanuel had that famous quote, never let a crisis go to waste, which I kind of agree with, but somehow it became all about anger and splitting and fighting and blame. And some fair and some unfair, but it's just not the way you're going to come up with a better society.
But you still feel some anger too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. How could I not? I mean, the things that were forced upon us, and after Bear Stearns, it's crazy.
Is it because you felt like I'm trying to do the right thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We bought Bear Stearns at the request of the government, and years later, we paid $10 billion of fines.
Right.
On Bear Stearns. So, and a little bit the same with WAMU. And you don't know this, but the day after Lehman went bankrupt, the day after, I was asked to, there was a huge company being unwound overnight. We lent them $80 billion secured against like $85 billion securities to have an unwinding that didn't damage the American public. I got sued on that one too. I mean, it's unbelievable what goes on in our system because people, we kind of have a thoughtless reaction to stuff. And so I learned a lot of lessons, what I would do differently, what I wouldn't do.
What did you learn from being fired? I read a quote, I don't know if it's true, that you said, the day you left Citi, to a coworker, I will never work for another person again. Is that true?
I don't think that's true. I'd probably say I'll never work for Sandy Weill again.
Tell us how you really feel.
What I learned, whenever something goes wrong, you've got at one point to look about what you did wrong. And so in any one of these things, it's not binary. There's this whole bunch of stuff. And I called Sandy up after a year and said, it's time we break bread. He said, okay. But I told him, just, he was like sweating when I went down there and was worried. I said, Sandy, it's okay. I'm going to talk about the past 2 minutes. What you did wasn't the right thing to do for Citi, but I made a lot of mistakes. And I laid out some of the mistakes I made that led to a worsening relationship, that a bunch of stuff. After I finished, I said, thank you for sharing that, as opposed to, I made a few too, Jamie. But, I see him. I don't harbor a grudge there. I'm moving on. But
it all worked out for you.
Yeah, it worked out okay. and less so for him.
What? Still carrying a lot around on that one. What?
I still
what
see
did
Sandy,
you learn from the whale? You called that a mistake. You said 3 mistakes.
Oh, that
I
was
read.
terrible, yeah.
WAMU, bear, whale.
No. WAMU I would probably have
London
done
whale.
anyway, because WAMU put us into California and Florida in a big way, and we built a lot of stuff there. Bear I wouldn't do, just the extreme risk we took, and then we got punished. And
you spent a lot of money.
The London whale was a big trading area. So the second it happened, and I realized what it was, I was like, oh God. I got all of our people together, the PR, I sat them down and said, we have a problem, and it's going to be, we're going to get killed. So, and you all, some of you, no.
You don't think it was rightly?
Let me just tell you what happens. And this is a lesson to everybody. When something like that happens, every attorney general, the SEC, every regulator, every government official, and every press person comes after you, like barking hyenas, and I knew it was going to happen. I've been there before. And I told people, hey, let's just acknowledge the problem, which we did immediately, fix the problem, and keep the place, our job is to serve our clients.
But there was the comment about the tempest in the teapot.
Yeah, but that was because when I made the comment. That was just the anatomy of the mistake. When I said that statement, I thought it was true. And a week later, I found that it wasn't. I was on the road. I called up and asked a few questions. There was an article in the press. I asked very specific questions about the liquidity of these positions or something like that. I was told a number. It was dead wrong. And then I was quoted saying that. A week later, we found out, and I came out and publicly, on the phone with all my shows, said, we've lost $2 billion. We made a terrible mistake. We put on these positions. They were meant to hedge the company, by the way. That's how stupid it was. It was a bad strategy, badly done, badly vetted, badly controlled. It's my mistake. I apologize to all my shareholders. No customers were involved.
Right.
It was shareholder money. And we paid another $2 billion of fines. Which again, you could argue, well, it's good. Yeah, the regulator should punish you, but that much for a mistake we made that hurt no one, other than ourselves. We were embarrassed, and we admitted it, and we fixed it. So this society gets too razzed up about things they shouldn't. Well, you know what we should be razzed up about?
Yes.
Half of the kids in inner city schools, mostly poor minority, don't graduate. That should be, that's the one you would think. We are destroying the lives and livelihoods of kids and families, and yet they worry about my little trading loss. I mean, I'm being serious. Like, who cares? A big company did a stupid thing. Again, it wasn't customers. Half of the kids in inner city schools don't graduate. They aren't your kids, by the way. All your kids that go to very nice schools and high schools and colleges and stuff like that, you wouldn't send your kids to these schools. So there's no revolution on your part, but there should be. And so I think we have things unbalanced in this country, and that we got to get rebalanced and look at the things that don't work to help most Americans. And that one is not just bad for the economy, it's unfair.
So one of the things that
immoral.
You said in your own letter, you said that doesn't work. You said, and I'm tying it to your comments about inner city kids. You said that you have failed in the area of diversity as it relates to African Americans. That's in your own letter.
Yeah.
You talked about the strides you'd made with women.
Yep.
You have 10-person executive committee, 5 of them are women, but you say on African Americans, we have missed.
So I was having a meeting going through diversity and trying to drill into it, and a lot of people do this, and of course, we lump it all together. So when things get lumped together, I just divide it up. Okay, with women, absolutely outstanding. 30% of the top 200 people, half of my direct reports, women. Unheard of, and no one writes it. The press is in the room. I've been begging the press to write about it. 20% of my direct reports, LGBT. We're doing great with Hispanics. We're doing great with Asians. But with blacks, it's not.
Why?
I'm going to tell you something. It's not that we're bad. We're as good as any one of your companies. Probably better at this point. But it's not JPMorgan good. It's not what I want to expect. So we said we're going to set up a special effort. Supposed to have a diversity effort, an effort just for black. And by the way, we made it black globally because I traveled around the world. The blacks in England said to me, hey, buddy, it's not African Americans. It's the black people here too. Like I was just in Brazil. Brazil is half black. There wasn't one black person in the room, and I had a room this big. Okay, so it's a bigger problem in Brazil. It's a problem. And so one is to acknowledge it, separate effort, separately staffed, and we do it at every level now, where we're going to recruit. So we're going more to Howard and these historically black colleges. I think retention is the big one.
But what about bringing them in at senior level?
We're doing that too. And we've hired several MDs this year, so we actually look at the numbers are going up. And we're not violating, we're hiring great people. And as you know, we have a black woman who runs our consumer bank, which would be a Fortune 50 company. Okay, and of course, that one thing, you can imagine what it means for blacks inside the company. So we're simply acknowledging that it's different. I put it this way, because we've had these debates about Black Lives Matter and White Lives Matter, all lives matter and blue lives matter. Of course, all lives matter. But I think that shows a little disrespect when you say Black Lives Matter, because they grew up differently. You know, the fact is, most of the white people grew up one way, and we all went to school with women and each other and stuff like that. But blacks generally, and for the most part, grew up in different communities, different schools, different friends, different education, different background, and this has been going on for hundreds of years. And I think to acknowledge that's a good thing. You know, if a black person is being pulled by the side of the thing, I mean, if you're white, paint yourself black and walk down the street one day. And you'll probably have a little more empathy for how some of these folks get treated. And so we need to make a special effort because it's a special problem.
So,
and I think, by the way, I think if we do it right, it'll enhance everything.
So you are known for your clear financial acumen. I was once told by someone, I think it was Steve Burke, that you could see an error on a page just jumps out at you. So I
can't see the page anymore, but
you count things.
Yeah.
What's the goal? Like, what are you driving towards? Because I think of you as being a person who says, here's
at all the junior, not the analysts, associates, there is a goal.
Do people get paid based upon that goal?
Yeah, they'll be incorporated in how we look at things. We're not going to give them specific things. In a financial company, I wouldn't give anyone a specific goal ever. I think you want to destroy a company, do that. You know, I think if you're a shoe company and you're selling shoes, you can pay them $1 per share of the shoe. But in a financial company, it's too complex.
But you have earnings goals.
We have a budget. We don't have a goal per se. But I'm saying we're recruiting in more schools. We're hiring more people at the young end. We're doing a better job in retention. We're training at the other end. We have far more conversations.
How do you measure if you're successful?
For example, we have numerical numbers. So I can actually show you how many MDs and how many analysts, how many associates, how many EDs, what are the retention levels, the attrition levels, and the survey. So we actually went through the survey, and you can do big data on these things now, so it's really much better. And you can see exactly what your African Americans said, and where they said it, and where they feel like they're part of the company, and where they feel like they're not, by boss. Wow. You know, so and by it doesn't mean you're a bad boss, but some white people have a hard time talking to black people. And therefore, they're not getting feedback. They're not being told they're not doing a good job, which means they're not being given a chance. So we're doing it at like every level, including this little psychological level. And so it's actually amazing. It's working. I did this one town hall, and this kind of caught me off guard. I do all the time all around the world. I've done them with the black community, but I did it in the open part of 270 Park Avenue, like in the hallway, where people travel through. And the response I got from black Americans, I just didn't expect. And nor did a lot of white people, there wasn't just all black people listening to me, that they were shocked that we were willing to say the same thing in front of everybody.
Wow.
That one thing. And it caught me off guard because I thought, well, I've been saying it for years. It wasn't like it was a secret. And they thought it was kind of a secret when it's just in the back corner over there. And so we're gonna do a good job in this one too, and hopefully set a good trend there.
So last question, I read this thing that you said as well, where you said that when you think about leadership, you think about would you want to work for the person?
Right.
And secondly, would you want your child working for them?
Right.
My child's only 4. Would I want Everest to work for you?
Yeah.
Why?
I think so. The other thing about the door to diversity in any good company.
Not even about diversity.
No, I understand. I'm making a broader point. That you want everyone in that company to trust the company, respect the company, and to feel trusted and respected. Particularly, and I mean everyone, including worst of their clients. Some of you may remember Bank One. I fired several clients when I got here. I fired them because of the way they treated my employees. Okay, and I won't allow it. And so you don't, and the other thing about, you have to go the extra mile to do that because people are different. You know, so you walk in a room, you know, if you're a white guy and you're talking to all the other white guys about the football game, that, if a leader, that you're turning off, you know, maybe the Indians who didn't watch it, or the women who don't care. And you have to go out of your way to create that environment as opposed to, you know, just you treat people with trust and respect. And that's the door to all other things. Retaining good people, treating clients well, not having harassment problems. You know, that is the door to all other things. And you want that. So as a younger executive, and I'm sure we've all been in this position, there were times I promoted people that they're difficult people. And now they're going to be responsible for 1,000 people or 20,000 people. And so one of the questions I always ask now is that question: would you want to work for them? Would I want my daughter to work for them? I have 3 wonderful daughters, all who graduate here, by the way, high school. And I think she would love the company. The company has exceptional people who treat people well, do great stuff around the world. And of course we make mistakes. You know, we make, I mean, I could write a book about my mistakes, which I'm not going to do, but we try to fix them and acknowledge them and get things better. So hopefully we're building that kind of company. And you don't have to be, and I tell people, good leadership, it's, you know, I always tell people, leadership, you know, running a business, discipline, detail, facts, analysis, review, facts, analysis, detail, no BS, by salesperson, by region, by this, by that, by risk, by error. But the real part of leadership is the heart. You know, that people trust you. They want to work for you, and you got to have humility. So not humble, like I'm not a humble person, but I know I don't know everything. I know that I want everyone to give the best that they can. My door's open to everybody. I work just as hard as anybody else in the company. And so you know, heart, humanity, and Jack Ma calls it the love quotient. You know, that is supposed to EQ, like the love, but I think it's true. That is how you create an organization that people have trust and faith in each other.
We started with trust, we'll end with trust. Ladies and gentlemen, Jamie Dimon.
Mellody, thank you. Thank you all very much.